Well, good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson Knight, and of course, with me tonight is my techie assistant, Joe. How are you, darling?
Doing great. How are you this evening?
Oh, we're running a little behind, but we have a new rule in the house. We feed the bear before we do anything else.
Yes. We
Yes,
definitely feed the bears first.
yes.
Yes. Sorry, guys. I know we are running late. And then, of course, you had a Windows update right as we were ready to get started. And
Yeah,
it was
it's
like, hold on. It was like, oh, man.
yeah, it's like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah. So, no, we've been doing a lot of stuff here at the house. And yeah, it just was a day that slipped away from us.
Well, I'm kind of gotten into nesting mode, which is scary.
Yes. A little.
Yeah, a lot of cleaning.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of reorganizing and going, why did we keep this? Why do I need 12 things for this?
Yeah, you do have a tendency to like keep things that are broken or parts of things that you no longer have and multiples of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's just kind of like let it go. Just let it go. Can't keep it forever.
true.
Yeah.
So I've been working on getting that done. Um, and then just the other stuff of like, well, I wanted to, we got the grill back up and the yard's
Yeah,
mowed, hedges are trimmed, and the gardening is moving.
it is.
Yeah.
Life is going pretty good though, and we've got the cage, so to speak. We built a wall around your raised garden
We
uh,
did. We did.
to keep the rabbit from eating any more vegetables. Sorry, Mr. Bunny Foo Foo.
Yeah, you've got grass,
Um,
clover, and lots of other things you can go and eat.
well, yeah, and it was more so just one of those moments that it was like, oh, come on, we stuck it in the ground last night.
Yeah.
Like, dude, that like you ate a plant that is like this big.
Mm-hmm. You could have
Like,
ate anything else.
come on. And more importantly, it wasn't even the carrots.
No, he didn't go after the carrots. He went after the sage, and I'm like, really?
No,
Just
he went after the cucumber.
yeah. Oh no, he had that too. He had a really interesting dinner. He had
Yeah.
cucumber plant and sage plant and morning girl.
And wasn't it also my celery we were a little afraid of?
Well,
Because it
that.
took some,
One of those is still stunted from him.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like bad rabbit.
very bad rabbit. Although he might make a good
Set up, you'll make stew.
flavoring himself.
Do I know?
He might make a good stew. He's already flavoring himself. Yeah.
Like we can grow the vegetables and have a nice vegetable stew, or we can fatten up the rabbit and have a rabbit stew. And we'll just buy vegetables. Like it is all up to this rabbit right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is all up to the rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Because I found a crossbow I like. I really, really like.
Oh gosh. No.
What?
No.
It ain't that hard to skin it. You get mittens out of it too. And 4 new keychains.
No.
Okay.
What? The rabbit's feet weren't lucky for the rabbit, and that's a stolen joke. They weren't lucky for the rabbit. Why would I want them?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. But it's been a really weird news day. We were talking about this at Feed the Bear, aka I decided to grill something.
Yeah. We had lovely kebabs and foil packets of veggies.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a very nifty dinner.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But today is June 12th. If you're watching this in the future, if you're watching us now live, I did expand this show to where I would take questions, just pop them into the chat. Remember your birthday. But it's June 12th. In most recent history, it's the anniversary of Pulse. And, it's also the anniversary of Love versus Virginia.
Loving. It is Loving Day. It is Loving v. Virginia, the landmark ruling that recognized interracial marriage. Very important day.
Yep.
But yeah, it has been 53 years.
Right.
1967.
And see, this is what people forget about. That's one of the big blocks in that rebuilding marriage and taking it out of the Victorian era of marrying for love as long as it fits within these categories. That was the first ruling to step it up and go, oh, you can't regulate who you marry.
Well, Loving v. Virginia is actually a kind of a complicated case. It was more so about, while the ultimate effect is on changing racial restrictions on marriage and allowing interracial marriage to occur, part of the problem was that this couple got married, no one had a problem, went home, and in the middle of the night, basically the police came in, barged in, told them they were committing a crime by being married, and gave them two choices. One was to go to jail, the other one was to leave the state of Virginia for 25 years. So,
yeah, and that used to be a common thing. Get out of our state. Just get out of our state. You burglarize this, or you have child support payments. Leave the state.
Well, moreover, if you're catching a theme here, go back where you came from. Being run out of town. Those kinds of sentiments. Yeah, that's the kind of idea,
right?
And that's what people lived with.
But a lot of people don't realize that is like the first step to marriage equality.
In many ways, yes.
Yeah.
It was it also started to change a lot of how we thought about marriage. In terms of trying to keep people apart. That, okay, maybe we're making some mistakes here.
Right.
And that's the nicest way to put it. There was a lot of blowback on that one.
Well, and there was a lot of blowback in general about how it was going to destabilize marriage, the sanctity of marriage, and tear everything up. Amika, how are you? There was a lot of problem, and we saw this when we fought for the right to gay marriage.
Well, we saw this when we fought for civil unions. Is that ultimately what happened is, apparently in a bunch of conservative heads, this triggered the words gay marriage. And we're like, no. We're fine over here. It's okay. We just want like a domestic partnership kind of thing. Like we don't want marriage. We're not asking for marriage. Marriage wasn't what this was about. We got it. We're not going to get it. Got it. So we're not asking for that. We're just asking for a way that is less complicated, and is at least officially recognized to confer some of the rights that couples have.
Right.
And it was a very specific number of rights we were looking for.
Yeah, 1,062.
No, not originally. Marriage itself has a lot of rights attached to it.
Right.
This was more originally. It was more so about inheritance.
Right.
And the way property worked, and the way that selecting a next of kin worked. That in those regards, in a lot of ways, no matter what you did legally, without that marriage recognition, you could often end up at the whim of wherever the hell you were, and whoever the hell you had to deal with. Everywhere from hospitals to, hospitals to hotels to whatever.
Right.
Whether you're dealing with a funeral home or you're trying to probate a will.
Right.
Or you are trying to, like you're in a 50, 60, 70-year relationship with someone. You think you own a house together, but then because it's not covered in a will, you died intestate, then suddenly you don't inherit that house.
Right.
Depending upon local laws and who's doing what.
Right.
And what their thoughts were. So that was a lot of where this was at, and especially on the next of kin issue.
Well, not only that, but I'll grab my visual thing that's here every time we're in the show. Because this is where we keep this lovely binder. It's now thinner than it used to be, but it's still not down to one page.
Right.
That just covers medical. These are for medical emergencies. This doesn't cover our financials. This doesn't cover joint property. Those are all things it wasn't even tax credits.
Yeah. It wasn't even about taxes. But we showed up anyway. Sorry, that was a whole tangent. And hi, Brenda. That was a whole tangent just to get to the point of, no, we weren't asking for marriage originally.
Right.
Then a bunch of conservatives got it through their head that this is like the road to gay marriage. And they said, no, we're not giving you gay marriage. Right. And we went, well, that's not what we asked for. And once they finally uttered the words, you're never going to get, gay marriage. Want to bet?
Right.
Like, you threw down a gauntlet, we are going to pour glitter on it and show you that can happen.
And covered in rainbow sprinkles.
So, eventually, finally, we did get there.
Yeah, we did get same-sex marriage. But marriage equality still isn't fully there. People who choose to make a marriage is still not fully able to make a marriage. And when we say marriage, a contract committing a relationship of any form that is of consenting adults with a carrot or a complete creation of it. And a lot of people don't get that. The battle for marriage was never about reducing a binder to one sheet of paper that we each could carry in our wallets and not go, honey, did we pack the bag? But I'm one of those that say we still ain't got it.
Well, I still look at it as what we ultimately went for, and what became the biggest part of the argument and trying to get everyone to shut up and listen was we went for marriage rights, RIGHTS, not marriage rights, RITES.
Right.
Which is two separate things. If it has a G in it, it's for government. If it doesn't, it's religious.
Right.
And those are two very vastly different things. We don't care if your church will marry us or not. There's a courthouse. I can fill out a form.
Right.
Which ultimately led to Kim Davis and another federal lawsuit.
Well, not only that, but it also led to a lovely new county clerk that I understand is doing a bang-up job.
Yes. Yes, there. That is your electoral crow.
Uh-huh.
Eat it, Kim. Eat it.
I suggest with
Um,
music like Wendy Williams. Um, but we also are still fighting for equality
mhm.
through on the government side. Religious side, we can sit here and debate forever. We can debate
Mhm.
where it says in the Bible, what it says in the Bible, what words were used, and if they were translated correctly. Anytime you want, just make sure that you book an appointment with me. And by the way, I suggest at least a 90-minute appointment to take care of that for you. But anyhow,
Yes.
um, on the other hand of it, the governmental side, and I like how Britain has always kept two marriages. One is a religious marriage. You can choose to do it or not. The
Mhm.
other is called a commoner ceremony, and it is the signing of contracts,
Mhm.
which is what a marriage certificate is. It says, I'm giving you half, you're giving me half. In some countries, it's I'm giving you 35%, and you 35%, and you 35%, and I'm getting 35% from you three, and we're going to form a company.
Mhm.
Um,
In many ways, it's exactly what it is, but it also there's a lot more attached.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, ultimately,
Yeah,
it is a mostly contractual thing.
yeah.
It's a contractual recognition of a relationship and the basically an understanding that comes with that
Mm-hmm.
of who inherits your property if you die intestate, who is your next of kin and gets to make your medical decisions,
Mm-hmm.
on and on down the line.
Who your
But
doctor, who your doctor can speak to, and that's even now up into new debate. A lot of new forms there.
well, no, that's not a new debate. I think more doctors' offices are finally paying attention to it,
Mm-hmm.
because that was under HIPAA.
Yeah,
Like, this is not new. This is not new.
right.
Even and there was a long-term problem with HIPAA,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been a long-term problem with HIPAA.
Right.
And HIPAA, sorry, Health Insurance Patient Portability Act,
Mm-hmm.
or Health Information and Patient. I forget. Um, I can't
Right.
remember HIPAA. Anyway, great big giant law covers healthcare, determines who can get your information and how you have to go about releasing it.
Right.
And yeah, there were for many, many years, even after that was passed, even after people thought this was kind of hashed out, enough
Mm-hmm.
hospitals had been fined that people were starting to get it. Even then, there were a lot of people still struggling with that whole, I'm sorry, sir, I recognize that the two of you are married, but your wife didn't give us explicit permission to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So unless she's dying,
Right.
we can't tell you anything.
Right.
Yeah, I'm having an evening. It's one of those brain moment things.
Yeah.
But yes, oh, for the heaven's sakes, I'm gonna get it right if it kills me. Um, but yeah. Oh, never. The Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Right.
There we go. I never can remember it. I always get it wrong.
Right.
But yeah, I should have a little sticker with it so that every time I say it, I can be like blah 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 blah. I never get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other anniversary, you know, Loving versus Virginia was a great win. But as I say, maybe I can get my words out. We'll see. I think I got to get really go up with that new idea of a heavier tongue ring, Joe.
Mhm.
But it's also the anniversary of Paul's shooting.
Yes, which is also very important
Right.
for a very different reason. On the one hand, and it's really sad because I don't know, like I didn't connect the two then, but it is so horrible that that level of a hate crime occurred on a day called Loving Day. That's just insult to injury in a way.
Well, I think that it's just, and then I look at today's current things going on, and I'm like, how much longer? How much longer until we can get off and get out of our system the need for weapons of war? I'm not going to call them guns because they're not guns.
Right. Well, and I understand that. And I'm going to sound like the NRA for like 5 whole seconds. To a degree, it is not about the weapon. The weapon does not point itself at someone else. However, not having that weapon would have helped tremendously to give people an opportunity to live.
Right.
But in that regard, this is it's really easy to get caught totally in the gun debate, and we've had that debate on the show.
Yes.
However, there is the choices of people, and it's not always people with mental health problems per se. It can also just be people with that much hate.
Right.
And I don't know that we're necessarily calling hate a mental health issue, as much as it can be. Like, I struggle with that one. I don't necessarily think of hate in and of itself, even when it gets to a point of extreme, as a mental health problem.
Right.
It's not a mental health problem. It's a hate problem. It is a ignorance problem. It is a bad information problem. It is a poor life choice problem. To go down that road or to end up being led down that road. But I don't in and of itself see hate directly as a mental health issue. And hello, Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. I do. Because 9 out of 10 mass shooters, they automatically go through a psychological evaluation. There's always some level of schizophrenia, some other mental health problem. And it's great to have the gun debate, and we both still hold our positions. I think, I want sensible, logical gun laws, weapons of war off the table, as in, we don't make them unless the U.S. Army orders them, or the Army of Britain orders them.
Well, and we mostly disagree. I think we have some minor differences in our opinion, ultimately. But yeah, no. But I also think again, I don't necessarily see hate as a mental health problem. I do, however, see that in some instances, having compromised mental health can allow some issues can allow some people to be more susceptible to falling down rabbit holes of hate. Right. But I also see that from a life positioning. That if you're in a situation in which you don't per se have a mental health issue, yet your life sucks, hate can form.
Right.
To me, the way I evaluate it is more so in terms of mass genocide.
Mm-hmm.
Military-led or government-led mass genocide throughout history, and the stroking hate into groups of people. Exactly what we've done all around the world before every war.
Right.
We create hate,
Mm-hmm.
and then in our soldiers, especially, and in our general populace, towards the other, whoever it is we're about to go up against.
Mm-hmm.
And then we magically think that that's going to all be resolved once that war is over.
And it never is.
Yeah. And most definitely how people are raised and what they're taught.
Right.
But anyway, like, very good points, not dismissing them, but as it regards the what I was saying about soldiers and the general populace, we
Mm-hmm.
assume it's going to evaporate when that war's over.
Right.
But it never does.
Right.
It can end up being that the war was bad. Like, wars are bad in general, but the war was bad. The hate left over from the war continues to create problems for generations
and centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But that also brings us to another thing that came on, and I actually made a very cute comment for once on a news article.
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR has decided that they are not going to fly anymore the popularized Confederate flag. It's not historically accurate. Most Confederates didn't have a flag. That was more created history. And I said they finally made a right turn because it makes no sense for it to be flown anymore anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and that has been a massive blow up in the sports world in general. NASCAR especially is getting hit hard because ultimately they are blaming this on the one driver who had recently said this needed to be done and had called for that. So there is a lot of blame being thrown at him for causing this to happen. But it's also telling the number of people that are absolutely losing their shit right now over that.
Right. And it's insane. I mean, it's totally insane. I have not seen commenting on an NPR or what is it, West Virginia Metro was another one. VVA was another one. Blowing up. I mean, blowing comments. And some of the stuff, some of the
and NASCAR's page alone, at the point in which it was sent over to me, or more importantly, when I was looking at it, it was mere hours, and it was at 55,000 comments. And they were just like, while you're reading, you just keep hearing them click in and click in and click in, like blowing up. Like, there's no social media manager out there that is capable of unilaterally handling 55,000 and growing comments just nonstop. Nonstop. What do you do with that?
Right.
Of course, everyone who is online, and every business online especially, you want engagement. That's a lot of engagement. And currently that post is at 85,000 comments.
Isn't that more than a lot of places got in voting?
Yeah, that is 80. Well, okay, apparently it had been up a lot longer than I thought. So yeah, that was posted Wednesday, June 10th at 4:45 p.m. 85,000 comments.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious. Oh, yeah. Let's see. And on the reactions, just to gauge where people are at, there are 24,000 likes, 23,000 loves, 16,000 angers,
Mm-hmm.
1,500 laughs. I don't know why you laugh. There is 1.1 thousand or 1,100 shocks. There are 1,100 approximately. It's showing me big numbers. 1,100 cares and 949 people are sad by this. So if you take the likes and loves,
Mm-hmm.
that is at 47,000 versus hate at I'm breaking the line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with 16,000, 17,000, 18,000 if you combine anger, shock, and care. Or, sorry, 16, 17. So let's still call it 18. If you count the anger, shock, and sad as all negative. And if you want a mixed response, I guess care and laughs.
Right.
Because that's the one I feel like. Care is an odd one.
Right.
And so is laughs, especially when you're talking about important social issues.
Mm-hmm.
It does become kind of hard to loose out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you care because you're upset? Or do you care because it's a positive, it matters to me?
Right.
Some people, I think, are using that all over the place.
Right.
And for the laughs, again, I don't see anything funny. Like, I don't know how you laugh at that. But then again, is it you're laughing at all the people you know are going to show up, like, pop the popcorn, this is going to get good?
Mm-hmm.
Show up and, like, flip out? Or are you laughing because you think this is stupid or ridiculous or what?
Right.
But if you look at it from the numbers of that 69,000, the vast majority are appreciative of what NASCAR has done.
Right.
And hate, while not, and I guess somewhat ironically, is a minority opinion on that situation.
Right. And see, this is where being someone who looks and studies history too much
Mm-hmm.
looks at this and goes, okay, you're taking a marketing thing down? Great. Because that wasn't even the Confederate flag. The Confederate States of American flag was 5, and then they added 8 more stars to a red and white flag with a banner.
Well, and moreover, the point of the Confederate flag, the one we commonly encounter,
Mm-hmm.
was simply to stoke racism, to stoke the idea.
Marketing flaw.
Right.
Right. So it should have left when the freaking commercial left.
Yeah. But it's like kind of Tuesday, we were talking about, the monuments of Confederate soldiers. When you go looking at that, most of those were not built, like, just keep in mind, long time since the war, Civil War over here, most of these monuments, the vast majority of these monuments, did not pop up until the 1910s, 1920s. And then it basically blew up everywhere. um, after 1964. That all of a sudden, there were a lot. There were a lot. And when you look at the monuments, keep in mind, if you really want to understand this, look at the monuments. Many of these monuments are hollow. This is not about making, like, it's not what you typically would consider a monument.
Right.
As in, you would assume, like most monuments are, they are big, heavy, solid structures. The fact that a group of people with a rope, as horrible as that image is, but as we have seen, if people can tie a rope around the neck of a statue and pull it down, or bend it, you start to understand that these were mass produced. Many of these are cast statues. It's based on one design, and they just sat there and kept churning them out.
Some of them.
Some. I'm not saying all of them. There are some, what I would call legitimate statues. I'm being careful to differentiate. I'm not saying that these were a good idea when they were created, or if they are any less representative of the problem. But I'm saying, like, the statues we're seeing come down, in many cases, weren't really built to last. Like, when you look at it, when you really think about it, is they didn't make a monument, something that would weather out generations and thousands of years. This is not Pillars of the Colosseum. This is not,
Liberty that is hollow. Have been in it.
But that was built specifically for that purpose, and granted, that has some issues as well, but that was actually built to be hollow, and for exactly what it is used for. It is a monument, but its purpose was also, in being hollow, it was designed to be hollow because shipping it would have been a nightmare.
Well, what about the torch in France? It's also built the same way. The Eiffel Tower is also hollow.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm saying, though, when you look at a lot of monuments, a lot of great statues, a lot of our great statue monuments to people, these are typically very expensive undertakings because they are not built like Easter eggs.
Most of them are, especially if they're going to be outside. They are,
but not all. And
not all.
But more so, it's not just not just that it's hollow, but thinly hollow, like it's a shell. Like, I'm talking about an Easter egg here. If you can tie a rope around it and bend it off at the knees, that doesn't seem like a very substantial monument.
I haven't seen many be bent off the knees. I've seen them normally tore off the base.
Yes, but there are some that have crumbled.
Nothing to do with the Civil War. Tore off at the base.
Well, again, with these monuments, I still don't feel most of them were built to necessarily be enduring. Like, they didn't care if they lasted or not. It was about making a statement then.
And remembering people, which I had another question for you. Okay. You go to work for Microsoft. You get Employee of the Year. You leave there, retire. Go do something else. Then you go work for Apple. Do you lose the award you won at Microsoft?
Do I care?
Yeah, it looks nice on a resume.
I mean, I don't know. To some degree, some awards, some of our history ultimately doesn't matter. It really won't. Like, if you're employee of the month for 6 straight years or 6 straight months, or you win it one time, I kind of look at it as the things from our childhood. We get into this participation trophy conversation in the United States all the time. This snowflake participation trophy concept. In a lot of ways, even the awards you were given in school, even if there wasn't a first runner-up and a third runner-up and a 53rd runner-up, thanks for playing, even if there was only the award, in many ways, does anyone remember now? Do I remember who had perfect attendance in 1994? No.
Well, it's like currently, and the reason I'm leading to this is currently there's a statue of Andrew Jackson, who was born in Clarksburg, West Virginia.
Okay.
And raised by an uncle. And that's why there's Stonewall Jackson Resort. It's actually his old farm. But there's a statue created in 1910 by a Jewish artist at the Capitol. Everyone's going, oh, he was a Civil War general. Yeah, but he was also a general of the Mexican-American War, redone and retrained the American Army system and the cavalry system. I mean, we're just looking at one thing these men did when they had careers that were 20, 30 years. He was also a teacher, an educator. That's why he's saluted. I think it's first-year cadets have to salute his statue in training.
And I go back to the point of very bad people can do great things, even if it's one thing. Do you think that anyone gives a shit about all the homeless people or all of the wonderful deeds that a pedophile priest has done? Like, you molested a child, you raped a child. At that point, no one cares. No one cares. That's going to be the thing. That's the one that overrides everything else. That unfortunately is going to override that. That you are never going to be able to divorce that. If we look at Brock Turner, for example,
who's a 19-year-old and never served in battle, never trained thousands of men, never saved men's life, never rescued 2 states at minimum from an invading army. And we went to war because his home state went to war.
And if I can finish my comment, if we look at Brock Turner, both pre-rape accusation, trial, and conviction, and post, I'm sure maybe he was a great swimmer and had a wonderful future ahead of him. And then he made a horrific and highly impactful on others choice. And no, everything that he does from now on will be permanently tainted by that. The most he can hope to do in his life is atone for it. But that's still going to be, regardless of what he does, the thing associated with his name. What we run into in history is that not everyone is perfect. Times do change. What is acceptable from one generation to the next will change. And from that generation to the next, and the next, and the next. It is the ultimate problem in creating monuments. And we have seen this throughout history. We are acting like monuments being torn down in the United States is the first time this has ever happened. What do we do? Please, how many wars? How many wars? How many Roman tore down statues? How many statues of Rome were torn down? This happens. This is part of our changing history, of time and history moving forward. It is part of progress. That, yes, we build, in some instances, most instances, statues meant to be enduring. And even then, time will change, wars will occur, progress will happen, new leaders will come to power, new ideas will spread through the world. And with those, out may go, and often do, some of the lasting memorials that we create to people who, at a point, were considered great. I mean, can you argue that one?
I don't know, since you're invalidating at least 2 careers and every museum created. With your statement, we should just go and bomb the pyramids and Rome.
No. What I'm saying is it has happened throughout history. Now, again, in the future, we may find those destroyed statues, and for their artistic value, their relative cultural significance to a point in time, yeah, they may be reassembled and repaired and put back together and fixed and put on display. But also, if we look at current history, or current museums and some of the collections that they have, there's a lot we don't necessarily know about. Why did we find this in a tomb? Why did we find this buried underground? Why did we find this in an excavation? What was the significance? Why was this here? What occurred? Why were these things covered over? Because if you look at even the pyramids, if you want to talk about, great lasting monument, it is. But there are some of those in different cultural sites that were plastered over. That what was originally there was hidden. Was it because someone made a mistake and it's kind of hard to erase? Or was it because a new king or a new whatever came to power? A new idea came to power. And we hid that. We erased it. As humans, collectively.
No, not as humans. And that's not what we're doing. That's not what's occurring.
Okay.
They're not being hidden. They're not being put up. They're not being preserved. They're being destroyed and treated with graffiti.
Understandable. However, if you
look, not understandable. Not understandable at all.
Okay.
That is not how a civilized society does anything.
Well, in some instances, those statues, they have petitioned to have removed, moved to a different site, made part of a historical exhibit, taken off of courthouse lawns, for instance, and their government has refused.
Yes. I think I should be able to drive a tank to Crystal Lotus when I want to do readings. That's currently against the law. The government refuses.
Mm-hmm. But we're also having a conversation in terms of cultural significance. Your individual desire to drive a tank on roads not built for that would incur a lot of problems for the state in terms of road repair.
Like they have that here in West Virginia. Potholes alone proves that wrong.
Well, you're not going to make it better driving a Sherman tank. But ultimately, your individual desire as a single person, as a very small group of people that want to drive a tank to work every day, the closest you're going to get to that is go buy a Humvee. Go get a Hummer. That's as close as you're getting. But when we're talking about a massive population, a massive portion of our country that has been and continues to be oppressed, ultimately, yeah, it's understandable to me. It is understandable how walking past a statue built of someone who thought you as a person deserved slavery, that would, one, inspire you to want to protest and request the statue be moved and made part of a historical exhibit and moved away from a place of honor, such as a courthouse lawn, to be denied, to continue to suffer, that in a moment you could make a choice to be part of tearing it down. I can understand that. I can understand that. Again, you look historically at wars and the post-war effect, that when you win, or even during that war, many things of cultural significance end up destroyed. Statues among them.
What's the guy that done the computer but is basically erased from World War II history?
Alan Turing, and he was for many decades erased from World War II history, or at least under-recognized, under-credited, and not heavily mentioned.
Why?
And suffered greatly. Time, as a gay man, no one wanted to positively associate him, and more importantly, gay men, to anything positive.
And we're letting that occur again.
I don't follow.
Alan Turing, wonderful career, wonderful, brilliant man, worked very hard. Was the reason that one of the reasons we were able to defeat the Nazis. Tortured, totally erased basically from history for one reason. We're repeating that with every general that said, oh, this is my home. I am military. I have to back the government because that's what I do. This state has decided that this is the reason to do this, so I'm going to go do my job. Forgetting that they done anything else.
Again, I do not agree. I don't see it in that context. Because I'm still looking at the context of how many of these statues were put up and what they were actually put up to represent, was not about remembering history, but as symbols of oppression.
Yeah.
That is what they were. That is what they were created for. That is how they were put up.
No, they were not all put up for that. The statue to Christopher Columbus was put up for his discovery of a trade route to America and discovering America to what we currently, as Spain, knew it as.
It's hard to discover something that already has people living on it.
Really, any cartographer there wasn't here.
But there was already an indigenous population, and ultimately with Christopher Columbus, we are effectively not celebrating the discovery of America. We are again talking genocide, the beginning of genocide. What happened to the Native American population was genocide.
Yeah. Happens every time two populations involve themselves.
Okay. But I'm not making the connection, apparently, that you're making.
Well, we have a bunch of rioters destroying a statue that doesn't even have to do with what they're saying that they're out doing it for. That's okay.
Again, as I've said previously, I do not directly support the destruction. I just say that I can understand it. I can understand the anger and the frustration and the absolute over-the-top amount of crap that has occurred to get to this point.
Well, I can't even identify with it. I can't even identify with that level of destruction because it's not making the changes.
Destruction in and of itself is not about making change. Destruction in and of itself is about gathering attention and commanding it.
Again, still disagree, still think that they need to teach better history. How about actual history instead of whitewashing it? In general. But, we also went through election, and we did actually finally get one more GPLT in office. And I think it's our first openly transgendered woman in office. So congrats to her, and congrats to us finally making progress. This is how you make change. You put us in power, you put us in office. You want to see change? Vote. And we saw a lot of that, but we also saw a lot of problems. Same places, Georgia. Some here in West Virginia. But we have to get involved with it.
Absolutely. And that was in Wheeling, West Virginia. She is now she won her city council race, and her name is Rosemary Ketchum. So she is set to take office in July.
Yes.
As the Ward 3 representative.
Right.
Because I do want to make sure that we name her. That is important.
Okay. And, we kind of teased on Tuesday about a topic. and it's been fluttering all around the Gaber socials, fluttering all around Twitter. Trended for a while, and it was Lady G.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and start your coverage on that one.
Well, basically, there are yet again rumors regarding Lindsey Graham. There are now multiple escorts who are looking, it sounds like, or at least the allegation is made, there are multiples, looking for a way, or legal representation, more importantly, to get out of their non-disclosure agreements, which bind them from talking about a client they all know as Lady G, aka Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
So that touches on a point of contention.
Two, actually.
Well, at least one big one. Is outing.
Yes.
And your other one?
The non-disclosure agreements.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, with non-disclosure, usually it's very hard to enforce a non-disclosure. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't know of it ever being done when a non-disclosure involves a criminal act. You cannot enforce a non-disclosure agreement when the non-disclosure agreement is about a criminal activity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot have someone sign a non-disclosure agreement to sell you cocaine. Selling cocaine is not a legal activity.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the activity that the non-disclosure is based on is not legal.
Right, but where does this change hands at? Because if we remember, we've seen non-disclosure agreements discussed before.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well, a lot during this presidency.
Yeah,
Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, Stormy Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
And how she couldn't release much information because of the non-disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes into question, what is stopping these guys? I mean, the non-disclosure agreement in itself is bogus.
Presumably. Again, here's the thing about that. These are escorts going up against an elected United States official that is not broke. The problem with lawsuits, and I actually heard someone best sum it up recently, is you can still be right and go broke proving it. Sometimes there are battles not worth fighting. And then you're going to lose everything. You're going to be found right, but you're going to lose everything proving it. So at some points, and much of that had kind of went into the Stormy Daniels case,
right,
is the cost to come forward, which technically I do believe that was a enforceable non-disclosure. But the legal costs trying to fight that when you're going against someone with a lot of resources can be very, very expensive.
Well, see, here's the debatable part about it.
Okay.
We all know what went down. So we won't cover that because we have to remain somewhat family friendly. But what's the difference? Why can't these guys come out? And I'm sorry, but I do have a problem with it.
Okay.
They should have to reveal their full book. Like, you don't just name one. You name them all. I think we'd see some interesting things come out.
Potentially, but then again, you are getting into an ugly territory in the outing side of things. Generally, it is bad form to out someone.
Yes.
And it is generally not just frowned upon. It's enough to get you kind of thrown out of a lot of places. Is seen as a social pariah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because in many instances, outing can be very destructive. Not just financially, career, marriage, but also emotionally and mentally.
Mm-hmm.
To be put in that position. And it's been a hotly contested issue for many, many years about if it is ever actually okay or appropriate to out.
Sorry, it is on this case. Point blank, name every freaking Republican client you have that is holding office and every day legislating your civil rights and everyone else's civil rights.
Mm-hmm. But in this case, to kind of go backwards a little bit, what the relationship between Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump centered around was an affair. It was adultery. While there are some areas that have anti-adultery laws, and there are potentials there to face a lawsuit or to be fined, there are, however, very few of those, and typically not all that heavily enforced anymore. There was like literally, I can only remember one case of that actually going to court, and they're typically called alienation of affection, and come up in divorces.
Well, it's debatable.
Okay.
Stormy Daniels,
Mm-hmm.
very beautiful, very active, lovely adult actor, lovely adult performer
Mm-hmm.
that is now being harassed by every Republican mayor across the country. And we have Cheeto.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me there was love there? Because an affair means that there was love there.
But that's where it gets ugly, trying to define what is and isn't prostitution. That in some instances, being seen with Donald Trump, being appreciated by Donald Trump, may not necessarily be directly he's paying for sex. Now, functionally, you could view it that way. Welcome to, sugar daddy, sugar baby relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Typically not seen as prostitution. In many cases, neither is escorting, depending upon what occurs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fine line. And not a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Not for sex workers and not for clients of sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
At least legally speaking. It takes a lot of balance to avoid the paid for sex situation, which is prostitution is only legal in one place in the United States, as far as I know, and that is Nevada, and I believe only Reno? Or is it, no, the state of Nevada has legal prostitution.
The state of Nevada has legal prostitution. Nashville has, but hasn't. It's one of the weird ones.
Yeah.
Like they have a registry that prostitutes are supposed to go and register at.
Mm-hmm.
They do, the government there during the Civil War having to deal with an influx of sex workers. Which, by the way, I'm a pro-sex worker.
Yeah.
If you guys hadn't figured that one out. So the laws are there to support the registry, but they're not there, and that's at a city level. But the state level says that it's illegal.
Right. Well, and again, that can happen. Welcome to the ever-changing world of laws.
Yes.
Sometimes you end up with some weirdo ones that do one thing, and other ones that came after it or before it that go, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And then we also have, what laws do we actually enforce?
Right.
And that can become a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
And like, there are some, I believe, Victorian era anti-spitting laws for civility that,
Actually, that was to control the spread of
spread. Yeah.
influenza.
Yeah.
Yep.
But ultimately, generally not enforced. Like, you're
Right.
going to be hard pressed
Mm-hmm.
to find like widespread enforcement.
Right.
In the U.S., in other countries, this is a real legitimate part of their daily life. That is a major social taboo, and it is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And you can and will be arrested for it.
Right. It's like in Japan. You step on money, you are arrested. So drop a 20 in the wind, you don't step on it. But there are some weird laws that are still left over. There are some good laws that are still left over. Uh,
Well,
and
and specifically, just simply looking at tarot readings,
right.
and the issues we go through, trying to make sure, if we schedule an event in an area that you don't typically go,
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that, okay, what's the local laws? What's the county law? What's the city law? What is even the state law
Mm-hmm.
regarding that particular venue or that particular area that you're going into?
Right.
And some of those laws were developed around the idea of creating a, so to speak, a tarot parlor, i.e., you're going to either be opening a storefront or you're going to be opening a home business, like hang your shingle.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those are built around that. I forget which area it is. You always talk about that you can't use your front door for it. You have to have a side entrance.
Okay, that is Flint, Michigan, is where she lives at. She had to take a window and make it into a door. So because, and there, see, this is where it gets fun. The whole law thing. She can only have clients Monday through Friday. She cannot have them on Saturday, and she must be closed Sunday. They must go between the hours of 12 and 5. She can only have like 4 clients a day. And they cannot go through her front door. They have to either go through a back door or a servant's door. She had to put in a door into a bedroom that was going to become her office.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole basis of those was actually to control the Romney population. Because during the 1910s and 1920s and the Civil War, and before then, they were trying to force a cultural change that as West children are required to have one address. And, if you attend more than 4 schools, you are actually in child neglect. And that was all regulating the Romney traveling. It's like in the city of Huntington, if it's within city limits, we have to turn down any bookings. If it is within Vienna, which is a city in West Virginia outside of Parkersburg, we have to turn down all bookings unless it is phone services, because then it's actually being conducted where we live, not where the client is.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, and it's because those are still on the books.
Yeah.
So if we want to talk laws that need to be changed, there's a lot of them.
Yes, and that's a very common thing. There are tons. There are whole websites dedicated to the weird, strange, unusual, forgotten, random laws that exist throughout this country, because in many cases, a law was passed at a time for a reason, even when it's discriminatory, and then culture shifted, ideas shifted,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still there. It wasn't a priority to fix. It may never be a priority to fix
Mm-hmm.
unless someone wants to very hard line challenge it in court.
Well,
Which we saw,
and
which we saw happen in Virginia.
Yeah, and I've been a part of the one in Parkersburg. We had to get the NCAA.
ACLU?
There you go. We had to get them and Lady Liberty. For those that don't know, the pagan community does have their equate to the ACLU. It is Lady Liberty. We had to get both of them involved and get a lawyer from each organization to come down and meet at a town council meeting to even get that area opened up.
And that was where, again, I'm sorry, I think we crossed.
West Virginia.
Yes.
Yes. Huntington still has it on the books. You aren't even allowed to, technically, legally, to own tarot cards. So when we plan a trip to Ohio, we have to make sure I don't go through Huntington because I'm carrying a lot of them. It's just some of the things that within this business. Here's an example. Every organization, every board has issued COVID-19 procedures.
Mm-hmm.
Brenda, Joe will read that in a second. That's hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cohabitating issues are not uncommon. That's actually not as uncommon as you would think.
Right.
There's a lot of that, and it is often built around discrimination towards multiple relationship types.
Mm-hmm.
Pre-interracial marriage, cohabitation could be used against a interracial couple. Depending on the time period the law was created and who it's directed at. Mm-hmm. And that is sometimes the problem with zombie laws, is mm-hmm. they get dug up. Mm-hmm. That, no one has an interest in enforcing it mm-hmm. necessarily. Like, no one's going around going, okay, well, let's go, knock all the cohabitators out and, like, come on, man, we got bigger crap in the world. But someone calls the police and really wants to press it, and they're in the right position, and they're trying to get you out of their neighborhood, using a zombie law to call the police and have them keep coming out and harass you. How long till you move out of that neighborhood because it's not worth it to you anymore? Or how long until you call the ACLU and try to file a suit to get this law overturned?
Right. It was a way.
Why is it illegal to have a crack pipe? Why is it illegal to have a syringe? Why is it illegal to have tubing, paraphernalia?
Yep. But read Brenda's complete thing, and then we'll go into why it's illegal to have tarot cards and what that laws are behind.
Okay. So in West Virginia, from Brenda, in West Virginia, where my cousin lives, cohabitating is on the books as illegal. An angry neighbor called the police on my cousin. The police apologized to my cousin, but told her they had to at least make an appearance.
Right.
So, yeah, and basically, if that neighbor wants to keep calling, while this will be a nuisance complaint and they will hate that neighbor for calling them out over and over again, ultimately, they could continue to harass her cousin.
And in poly relationships is where the cohabitation laws come into effect. Lot.
But again, depending upon the area, it could occur for any unmarried couple, or in any collection of unmarried adults.
Mm-hmm.
Or even the cohabitation of two couples.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that unless there is a clearly defined duplex and it's two separate units and all this, it could be seen as cohabitation.
Right.
And it can be used as harassment. And over the years, I'm sure has been used against couples of different race, couples who were just not planning to get married. They don't believe in marriage. They don't want to get married. They will be forever, technically, single, even though they're in a relationship. Gay couples, I'm sure, have seen a lot of cohabitation enforcement. Not that you needed a lot of effort on that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could theoretically use it against, as long as the law exists.
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate power of that, the big problem, what would concern me the most if I were in this situation, would be finding myself on the wrong side of someone with enough power and money,
Mm-hmm.
more than I can meet,
Mm-hmm.
that could literally make your life a living hell, that could get you actually arrested,
Mm-hmm.
that could force, that, like, for instance, let's say the mayor of this particular town or
Mm-hmm.
city, however, decides they don't like this couple across the street. Mayors often have a lot of influence and have a lot of ability to demand things.
Right.
Power can be corrupting,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Right.
could become a giant, massive battle
Mm-hmm.
because you're on the wrong side of someone with power and money
Right.
that can afford to push people around and get you out of that house, to force you out, or at least one of you.
Yeah. And but on to why is it illegal to carry tarot cards in Huntington? There is a law that says that tarot cards are illegal. Any method of occultic scrying is illegal, and that's the exact wording.
Mm-hmm.
That law was put into effect in 1922. It was to control the Romney population that was traveling through Huntington on their way to the tobacco fields, and then on their way to the peach fields, and then on their way to the orange fields in Florida, and then they would come back up during the winter somewhere in Virginia or West Virginia, then travel north, plant the crops, and work their way back down again. Huntington is one of those cities that was very prejudicial against the Romney because it is a crossing of, I believe it's the Ohio River from Ohio's cornfields into West Virginia, where they would log and work coal in the winter. And these cities didn't want these population that didn't own houses, wasn't going to be there long, to be in their city limits. So they would pass laws like this because most Romney read cards, play music, perform, dance, do metalworkings, do a lot of other different cultural things. They didn't want it in their town because, it also comes with the additional stigma of that they're thieves and that they're, prostitutes and that they're this and that and they'll steal your children. Quite frankly, I don't want your children. Because another thing that occurred during and within culture is a lot of times Romney would adopt kids that were on the street and saying, okay, you're coming with us, you work real hard, we do a pay in, pay out system, you work, we feed. Not hard to do. But towns were very much against that. So it was a way to control, it was a way to harass, it was a way to enforce, it was a way to be racist when we boil it down. There's a lot of history, and Ireland's facing this now with the traveling culture. They're now trying to destroy the encampments there, and are destroying them.
Yes. Well, and that's been a common recurrent theme in Romney history.
Yes.
Is it literally there's not only the travel for work, but there's also the railroaded out of town situation.
Well, there's
That we're going to turn the laws against you in such a way that, yeah, you come on in, we'll lock you up, we'll keep locking you up, we will keep taking your money in bail, and one day you'll get tired of it and you just won't show up here anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, Brenda brings up, and I'd love to know the tribal family name, because I know where you live, Brenda. Well, I know about where.
Wow, that sounded bad. I know where you live.
But I'd love to know the location, because I do know the trail, that my family and my tribe took. So very interested to see if one equals the other.
Yeah. But what Brenda said was, my grandmother had a Romney family that my grandfather had a Romney family that he let camp on his property every year. He'd kill a chicken for them to welcome them. The husband would make a piece of bent willow furniture for my grandfather. They knew it was a safe place.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the mood for fried chicken. But things being as in that type of thing, there was a large, the Civil War was over in 65, Reconstruction began in 69. Ooh, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Especially Worthington, West Virginia. Because my family wintered in the New River Gorge and would work the logging here. Rafting Company is actually the site that my grandmother actually settled down to, has took it over and created a lovely camp there that needs to go away. One of these days they'll forget to pay their taxes. But anyhow, Romney enslavement did not end till 1886 in Romania. And then, of course, the U.S. saw a large influx of it because they suddenly needed workers. Industrial Revolution, we still have farming going on. Very good thing to get away from your slave owners. But, that's one. They were also owned in the United States. They weren't freed until, the end of the Civil War. They were still owned in Europe. There are still Romneys that are currently enslaved in Upper Africa. So it's this looking at history and going, oh, it's like they teach only right now, most times, other than maybe a sentence, and about, that the Nazis just didn't kill the Jews. They killed the Romney. They killed the gays. They killed the mentally ill. Anything they deemed unworthy. And it's like, let's get some more history here. Let's look at real oppression. Let's look at oppression in general. Let's look at how our society is. And this is a wonderful, powerful time to do that. And to record history. And then bouncing back to our main topic of, sex workers wanting to reveal who their clients are. I have to keep record of my clients. We have a lovely Excel database for that. It is SEC regulated that we have to have a database to account for who it is, because they have a right to access my records under court order if they choose to.
But that is also why we only keep basic information, which is enough to answer who, when, and were they legally able to consent for this.
Right. And a way to contact them. That's why we collect email. When you moved in, I still had Rolodexes of index cards with phone numbers and mailing addresses. But FCC said you don't need that. You just need email addresses or a way to contact is now how the law says. A lot of psychics don't do that. A lot of psychics don't follow these laws. And it's like, you don't go to a hairdresser that doesn't have training for hairdressing. And depending on the state, it depends on how much it is. But again, these are laws and regulations that people have to, concern with. The CDC released new guidelines today for everything from a barbecue to a library to vacationing to cooking out. They haven't released guidelines for me. We will probably use the English guidelines because a lot of the stuff that we use for guidelines comes from England because they're the only ones regulating and have a board. And yes, I have a license and, this, that, and another. When we look at where I go for events, sometimes I have to buy a city license. It can be $250. And it's like, no, I ain't doing that. Sorry. Can't come to your fair. Want to come? We'll come as a participant, but I can't read there.
Mm-hmm.
Charleston, if we want to do Pride in September, I have to buy a city license there. There's a lot of governmental control and stuff that has to be evaluated. A lot of old laws that are on the books that need to go away.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also seeing a change, and I'm hoping they keep it in 2021 schooling. Now, you covered this issue. Talk about it.
So yes, for the 2020/2021 school year, West Virginia is currently working on classroom guidelines, as is much of the country, and what the classroom is going to look like for that school year. And what I find most interesting is that in this situation, we seem to be really reevaluating what education is, how education can be delivered, and what students are actually in need of. So I'm really hoping that conversation moves forward, that we quit trying to do one size fits all unless you have a diagnosis education. Because a lot of our education is one size fits all unless you have a diagnosis that warrants an individual education plan. Or most of what I've seen.
Right.
I think there are teachers that have kind of taken that approach, even if they're not required to for each individual student. But there are still a lot of teachers that completely ignore that. Even when there is a reason for an individual education plan, such as a learning disability, a behavioral disability, any of the number of things that can trigger an individual education plan. I also think it would be really nifty if out of this, we find ways to make education fit students' lives. And the reality that the vast majority of our world has shifted in employment. That there are more and more that basically education was built around a 9 to 5, or more importantly 8 to 5 Monday through Friday world. And we are still holding to that, which is kind of weird, considering that if you want to know why students have summers off, it was to plant crops, plow fields, and things like that. That's where our education system and its calendar is still built around. And that's what many of our older schools were built for. If you've ever wondered why your school has heat but not air conditioning, it's because it was built to be closed.
And that it's like in West Virginia, come Thanksgiving time, we get 2 weeks off, or we used to. Some places have gone a little less, but that's hunting season. That's canning season. It had nothing to do with the holiday. Same thing with Christmas. Nothing to do with the holiday, but you got to get your meat in. You got to, do this, do that. And we as a culture and a community have moved past that. I'm hoping to see the expansion of online education, online schooling, um, for many reasons. The
Mhm.
number of times I have sat through a class and been bored out of my mind because I've done the work. I've done read the chapters. I've done it. I am ready to move to the next thing, and it's like, what? Here's your assignments. Leave me alone. Because I'm an independent worker. I don't do well with bosses. Never have, never will.
You also don't do well with being up and ready to go somewhere at 8 a.m.
Actually, I used to bounce out of bed at like 6 a.m. after going to bed at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, but that's not always a great thing for you.
Right, but
you need at least a nap in the middle of the day. I personally call it for you bifurcated sleep, but
Yeah. I mean, naturally, I was, what was I scheduled? Not to wake up to 1:30 today?
3, actually.
Yeah, 3.
Until 3.
Yeah, and I went to bed at what, 11? And I was up at like noon. Well, no, I was up at like 2 or something.
Oh, Sharon. I was the same way. Teachers learned to let me sleep. They didn't want 50 million annoying questions asked. And then Jessica's like, sounds like me. But no, a lot of our education system was built around command and control and authority, and not necessarily always in the best interest of the student, or the ability to really work with more advanced students. Like gifted programs existed, AP classes exist, but again, you don't have in some areas, especially West Virginia rural areas. If you're in a major metro, you have Montessori schools and you have magnet schools and you have school systems built around arts focused education or music focused education. And what I'm really hopeful for is there may be an expansion there into the digital world. Like, hey, we kind of built this overnight. It's not perfect, but we've been able to do it. Maybe we can quit looking at this purely local education concept. Not necessarily, I'm not pushing for charter schools, never have, never will, will not. But if we're looking at online classes, it may open up opportunities for classes that in a mainstream public education would not be something you could fill.
Right. And, it didn't really hit me until we started talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
The education I have, it's no longer available. Granted, yes, I did have to sue Fayette County Schools to have a laptop. A word processor was the settlement in class.
Mm-hmm.
But my sophomore year in college, my sophomore year in high school, I completed the required high school credits. My junior year, I began taking classes at Tech. Junior year, senior year, I was half a day at high school, half a day at Tech. I learned Mandarin. I was taught some German. I had a couple semesters of German. That's no longer available. You get French or Spanish, and you have to be there for all 4 blocks.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that is a big problem with education right now, is between our reduced education budgets that are shrinking every year and not keeping up with inflation. We've seen a lot of shrinkage in terms of a variety of classes that students have access to.
Right.
And this is a great time to offer up new opportunities.
Well, not only a great time to offer up new opportunities, but to open up language courses, because Mandarin is highly, highly needed in the United States. Spanish is also very needed in the United States. You need to be able to at least understand if you cannot speak them. And those, I think, need to be brought back in. our arts and art history needs to be brought back in,
Mhm.
and be a required course. It is no longer a required course. People do not even know who Picasso is or why he cut his ear off. Um, but there are just so many additional resources. And, special ed classes are cute, and I will put them out as cute because I did also sue, and it was part of that suit was to force them to adapt me to regular ed. Um, because all I had was dyslexia. I didn't need full special education. Um, and that was in
Mhm.
ninth grade. So within a year of school, I was caught back up and, taught more than just this is a noun, this is a verb. No one understands that crap anyhow, except for a few Nazis, and then they're debatable. But anyhow, um, point being is, I'm hoping this does give every student the ability to have an IEP. A student like you who has a genius level IQ to actually be challenged. Would it have been interesting if you'd had to take advanced biology in school that was college level and you didn't have to take it when you went on to comp sci?
Hmm. Oh, sorry, you were talking to me. I thought you were talking to
Yeah.
Jessica. Okay, sorry. No, well, technically I was tested for gifted and I was apparently borderline. At least that's what my mother told me.
Oh, I'll
Um,
guarantee you're more than gifted.
well, here's the thing though. My like I think mom was a little worried. Because of a few different things that happened in my family. My father was double promoted twice.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his birth date, he ended up being one of those students. His birth date was late enough. He started school late, as in he was 5 when he started school, but he quickly turned 6. So age wise, he was kind of behind. And then he was double promoted once and then again. So he ended up graduating high school a year ahead. Um, for my grandmother's perspective, she never had an appreciation for that occurring. She ultimately saw it as they put her baby in with a bunch of older kids that he wasn't ready to be around. And that didn't turn out well. As for my mother's experience, granted, my whole family, all but me, had problems with graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, of the school system's making.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Part of that had to do with the fact that, much as you talk about, Romney and travelers and the amount of traveling
Mm-hmm.
that you know occurs there. My father worked construction, and at that point, for my siblings, um, they moved around as the jobs changed.
Mm-hmm.
One, they may be in Pennsylvania for one semester and then be in West Virginia for another and be over here. Their transcript was a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were moving between school systems, sometimes the classes they were in were so far ahead of what they came from.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the classes they were in were well behind them. That
Mm-hmm.
they're sitting there bored, like we covered this like 2 years ago in another state.
Right.
So, and that's been a big problem in the U.S. is getting a continuity of education,
Right.
as well as different school systems not respecting each other.
Right.
That one state's 10th grade English might not be respected by another state, and they'll make you repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with this very confusing jigsaw puzzle when you go to graduate and they try to take your transcript with all these different schools and all these different classes and a lot of repeats. Even though you passed the class, like, what the heck's going on here? Yeah, I was literally the only one that didn't have an issue.
Right, but
surrounding my graduation.
Right, but by then your family had formed a home base.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we still ended up with that, even though we had a permanent home address. And for all but like a month, I went through the exact same school system. That 1 month was when I started kindergarten in a totally different city. But after that, I had a continuous experience with one education system, one board of education.
Right.
But even at that, because my father was working on the road, we ran into that end of school year. Like, I've already done my exams. Teachers are like, it's that last like week where you don't learn anything. You're beaten in time because the school calendar says you got to be here till this date. We've already had awards day. We've already done this. And mom's like, can I just go ahead and pull him? And the school system had a lot of issues with that. That's an unexcused absence. That's a lot of them. And it's like, he's sitting there doing nothing. Right. They're watching movies. Like, this isn't affecting his education. He's not learning anything.
How to push, play, and record. It's so important.
I know. But even at that, we had a lot of back and forth. I never did have perfect attendance. Just wasn't a thing. And it very quickly quit being important to me.
Right.
By the time I graduated and could have had perfect attendance, what does it matter? It's, a gold star. Like, perfect attendance doesn't mean I showed up every day and learned something.
Right. And the U.S. is one of the few countries that does not have a universal curriculum. It's very mishmash, pish, pash, tish. I'd love to know Jessica's IEP comparative to mine, comparative to yours, which should have had junior level classes. So there is no reason you should not. Your senior year had English 12. And if you needed it, your foreign language. And then after that, you needed to be off on, like, over to the college or to a job.
But, and sorry to finish the original thought, though. So Mom had a lot of reservations, I think. And I think she might not have told me the truth.
Right.
As to my results. Right. Which I'll never know. I'm not going to go digging into that one. If Mom made that choice, then I can respect it. Because I understand it. I can understand why she would make that choice.
Right, but I'm still looking for an IQ test. An IQ test.
Okay.
Yes. All right. So, also another moment of celebration because we're running late tonight. We've had a lot of discussion. I hope you guys are enjoying this.
Yeah.
Mercer County actually done something right for once.
Yes. Porterfield is out.
He's not only out, it's like, why did they even put his name on the ballot out?
Well, he registered to run, unfortunately, and by a hair margin. There was room for 3 candidates. And there were more than 3 candidates for the upcoming general election. So, of course, in the primary, they had to decide which 3 would be there. And literally by hair did we get rid of Porterfield. So, yes, he is no longer an option. So, regardless of what happens in November, gone.
Well, and now we have to get the rest of the hit list out of there.
Hey,
out.
No, we do not call it a hit list. That is not cool.
All right, then we'll use the long version of this. a clear ballot of inequality needs to be removed
from public office.
Yes, public office.
Through a legal election system.
Yes.
Yeah, no. Sorry, ever since the Gabby Giffords thing, I have a real issue with that whole hit list, targets, at any cost thing. That gets me.
Well, I'm sorry. I was expecting Mickey Mouse to register in Mercer County and get more votes.
I mean, it could have happened.
I'm quite sure it could have. I mean, and I have clear views on a lot of electoral people.
Mm-hmm.
On the county, city, all the way up, both in Princeton and in the Fayette County area.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad when I'm crossing the aisle and going, all right, at least this one's got a brain. And I agree with his way he does things, but he's got a brain here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and in typical, I've tried politically to understand that not every elected official is going to make everyone happy all the time. Not every elected official is going to agree with me, but they can still be a decent person. Can we just all agree Porterfield and decent without the word not in between? Not a decent person. Like, never should it ever occur that decency is ever associated with him without the words indecent human being.
I would like to take him fishing. I haven't been in about 15 years. I'm sure we'd have a good time.
I'm just going to leave it alone. That's what I'm going to do.
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to sit over here. Like, yep. Just wait for the knock at the door and be like, he's back there.
What? They, don't have fishing license currently. In fact, it'd be a great time to go fishing.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. See what we can get settled out here. But no, Porterfield needs to move on. I think he would be a lovely. I hope his church flourishes and does wonderful, and he gets everything he deserves.
Uh-huh. When with that. Oh, is there anything else we've forgotten other than to thank our lovely Patreon sponsors, the Crystal Lotus Shop and Beverly Walker? We certainly appreciate your support. And if you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, please visit PCSPnetwork.com, where you can find out more about us, the shows, and a link to our Patreon page.
Yes, and also we do have one more thing we got to review this week.
Ooh,
part of Bears Be Cooking.
Ah,
y'all guys have seen me drinking on my lovely strawberry. You go into this because I'm not even sure what it is, although it doesn't have alcohol in
it. No alcohol. Despite his appearance this evening, no alcohol content.
I'm meaner when I'm drunk.
No. Actually, it is a copycat freckled lemonade recipe. You can find online, and actually, I'm sure we can share. Mm-hmm. I have an addiction to the things. We do not have a Red Robin anywhere near us.
Yes, we do. It's in Beckley.
Oh, do we? Really?
Mm-hmm. I just don't go there. I know. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of expensive, and the only reason I want to go is for the freckled lemonade. But I usually end up ticking off their bartender.
They have a C average with the health department. I don't think so.
No. Yeah, no. Never mind. No. That will not be my North Carolina freckled lemonade introduction and experience.
No.
And in case my friend Andrew ever watches, you made the best ones. Small world. You run into people you went to college with. Mm-hmm. Find out they are now a bartender at a Red Robin, and You're like, hey, hey. And then he eventually comes over and he goes, could you slow down a little bit? He's like, do you know what goes into making these? It takes me a minute.
Well, Sharon brings up a point and we need to address it because we alluded to it.
Mhm.
Aeson doesn't drink often, and here's why. Aeson spent 10 years working in a bar. Then he was a union rep. So, when Aeson drinks, he is not the happy fun drunk. He is not the slutty drunk. He is the, I am going to take on the world, and you're going to give me exactly what I want in finest detail to the 10th degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we would do contract negotiations, my constituents would bring me cups of lovely coffee of the Irish variety because I do like my cream, and I did enjoy my Baileys, and I do like my vodka.
Well,
So no, we don't. Aeson doesn't ever drink when it's not the right time, or I've got to appear in public because I am the bitch, but I will become supreme queen bitch in about 2 bottles.
And unfortunately, it's just really expensive to get you drunk. Unlike me, I'm a 2-drink drunk, and we wouldn't be doing this show if I'd had even one of those this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The last time Aeson decided he had had a fucking enough, it was going to call some shit out. He drank a bottle of wine. He drank 2 White Russians, 2 vodka and cokes, and 3 Captain Morgans and Coke, standard bar use, and I was still able to walk a straight line, stand up, and tell 3 people off that morning.
Yep. Oh, meanwhile, I ended up, after 1 bottle of wine, hugging a toilet, or more importantly, laying in front of it, because just in case I got sick, because I was feeling a little, I didn't want to have to get up.
Right.
So yes, I made a bed in front of a toilet.
It was quite cute. I just made sure he kept breathing, made sure he was on his side in case he was asleep and vomited, and then proceeded to begin executions.
Well, but no, I don't drink often. It's just no fun for me. Like it's a fine, and I mean razor thin line between I'm having a great time and I need to go hug porcelain.
Mm-hmm. And see,
that's my razor line. That's the divider. Mm-hmm. Like there, that middle point where it's like, whoo, I'm drunk, lasts for like 0.4 seconds.
Yeah, and I agree with Brenda. I am not a cheap drunk. No. We do get private label wines.
Poor Sharon. All I can tell you is my husband said I'm not allowed to mix my own drinks anymore. I have friends I have banned from ever making a mixed drink for me again. Like, yeah. I will call one of them out. Nikki, no, never again. Because like she was making blue motorcycles that night, and I was like, okay, make me one. And I'm expecting like this much alcohol in a solo cup because, at the time we were all poor and, this is getting drunk on a Friday or a Saturday, one of the two. And no, she did an entire 16-ounce, like triple shot blue motorcycle. I don't remember much from that night. I may have become slightly inappropriate. All I know is for the next week, there were people that could do nothing but point and laugh every time they went past me.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm putting a call out. There used to be a bartender at the Driftwood. I don't know where Jimmy went to. Jimmy, I need your Mr. Fluffy recipe and also your liquid cocaine recipe. Just in case I need to, I don't know. begin assassinations, character assassinations, or hairsprays anywhere near me. Yeah, we need those recipes for the archives.
Aw, she puts too much liquor. Aw.
Yeah,
It's a stiff drink.
you.
That's not a bad thing.
Stop the mixing. Just drink it straight.
Oh.
Add some fruit.
Yeah, no, that's how my evening goes wrong quickly. Yeah.
Yes. A Mr. Fluffy is a semi-green tinted drink that you do not taste the alcohol in. It also does not produce a smell of alcohol in your breath. But for them, and I could probably get a better deal with Keen. Same thing with liquid champagne. I negotiated my divorce with about a gallon of it.
Let's see. I was looking to see. Let's see. Didn't someone else say they were a cheap drunk? I do have a question. No, not a cheap drunk. Okay, never mind. All right, I was gonna say for anyone who is a cheap drunk, my trick in college was Midori sours. Just in case any cheap drunks are watching, my trick was Midori sours. You start with a Midori sour. It tastes like a sour, I believe it's sour apple or a green apple, Jolly Rancher. And when you've had too many, it just tastes like straight isopro. Or no, it doesn't. It ends up tasting like pure sugar when you've had too many.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the perfect time to stop because now it tastes like you're drinking Karo syrup, and no one enjoys that. Oh, well, no. Hey, no. We do not mix alcohol and meds. That's bad. Bad.
Yes. We also do not mix driving and drinking. I don't care how high your tolerance is. One sip of wine. Our household policy is if you show up and at least have a sip of wine, your keys become mine. To be found in an Easter egg hunt while I make you breakfast in the morning as loudly as possible. Because I will probably still be up.
All righty.
All right, guys. We are at the 2-hour mark. Unfortunately, we're going to have to see you next Tuesday. Not this Saturday. Next Saturday, Aeson will be returning to appointments at the Crystal Lotus shop. After that, you will see some new guidelines following for live appointments. Please understand that those are not only for your safety, but Aeson's safety. And they will be highly enforced. Sorry, I can't afford to get sick. At all.
Absolutely, Brenda. Be safe. Be well. It has been a wonderful evening. We hope you've enjoyed.
Yes.
Like, subscribe, share,
comment
things. There
our side
places.
Yes, all over the place. And also have fun because it's the weekend and there's lots of things to do. Happy Pride. Happy Black Lives Matter. Let's get some real movement behind this. Let's get some organization and let's make some damn changes. If you can get people out in the streets, get them out in the polls.
There we go. Good night.